Most people think camping with a baby is crazy. We did it for 3 months straight, and this tent made it possible. I'm not just someone who likes camping. I've been an outdoor gear journalist for 15 years and have tested gear for everyone from Backpacker Magazine to Outside and REI, CNN, and even the Wall Street Journal. I ran the tent category at Backpacker Magazine for years and have tested literally hundreds of tents in my lifetime, and that's a low estimate. So when I say this tent is different, I mean it. When our daughter was born, my husband and I decided we wanted to quickly introduce her to our lifestyle. Since I'm self employed and my husband has a really generous paternity policy, we decided to take off on a 90-day road trip through the American West, camping the entire time. Did people think we were a little crazy? Yeah, probably, but whatever. To live in a tent with our daughter, who was only 7 months old, we knew we needed something that could handle it all: wind, rain, dirt, diaper blowouts, full sun meltdowns. It had to be comfortable, sturdy, roomy, safe, and not take up a lot of space in the back of our truck. We weren't just going camping, this was home for 3 months. Enter the TentLab MoonLight, a tent you've probably never heard of. When we hit the road with our baby, I'd already tested the Moonlight for work and I loved it, so I knew it would be our home for 3 months. Here is what makes it so good: weatherproofing. It is barely an exaggeration to say that this tent is bomb proof. Most tents flatten or bend over in 15 to 20 mile per hour winds, and I can personally say that we've broken a few tent poles in these conditions. But the Moonlight can take those gusts from all directions and not even flinch, largely because of the eye pole that you don't see in a lot of tents. You can check out their wind testing video on their website, but I can personally attest to its strength as we were hit with some wicked storms in Utah and Arizona, and this tent just stayed strong and upright. No questions asked, and our baby slept through the entire night. Polyester instead of nylon. There are some tents on the market made of polyester, but these days, most tents are made of nylon thanks to its mixture of lightness, affordability, and performance. But the downside to nylon is that it expands a ton when it gets wet, which is why you've probably woken up to a super saggy tent with a drooping roof and condensation dripping in your face. But not with the Moonlight. Not only does polyester not sag or expand when it gets wet, but it naturally has better UV protection too. Once you pitch this tent, it's there and upright until you decide to pack up and leave. So much better. Livability. This was a huge one for us since we needed some extra space while living in a tent with a baby and all of her stuff. But we didn't want something that took up all of our truck bed or a really tall tent that would buckle in the wind. The Moonlight has vertical walls, which really minimize that slumping feeling that you get when you sleep on the sides and you can't sit up without hitting your head. But beyond that, there's a full mesh ceiling that feels like a massive skylight when you take off the rainfly. Plus, there are funky windows all over this tent that make it more livable, even when you're stuck inside during nasty weather. You can keep them zipped to prevent moisture from seeping in, but it's such a luxury to have windows to the outside world when you're stuck inside the polyester. And more tents are doing this now, but the double D shaped doors make it so easy to get out because you can sit on your butt and swivel your legs outside. I had torn my first ACL right before we moved into this tent, and I opted to wait until surgery until after the trip. This meant I was in a knee brace the entire time, which limited mobility, which made it extra sporting to get in and out of the tent. But thanks to these wide D shaped doors, I was able to swivel myself in and out without too much work. And when carrying a baby, even better. Durability. Most tent reviews you read online can't actually speak to durability anymore because that's not how digital media works. You test a product for a month or two, max, before you write up the review. Trust me, I do this for a living. But we've owned this tent since 2017, lived in it in 2018, and still use it today in 2025. We've logged hundreds of days in it over the course of 8 years, and I am not kidding when I say it looks as good as it did when it first arrived at our door nearly a decade ago. What I didn't love. Obviously, I love the TentLab MoonLight, but here's what it's not. It's not ultralight, it's not cheap, and it's not the easiest to pitch. For us, we're not counting ounces for a car camping tent, so the weight doesn't matter. Would I backpack with this? Probably not. But would I live in it for 90 days with a baby? Heck yes. And thanks to the iPool, learning to pitch this tent does take some work because it's just not as simple as other tents on the market, especially if you're doing it by yourself. But for us, that was a trade off worth making for the added stability and weatherproofness. And no, it's not cheap. TentLab launched a newer version in 2023, and this two-person now retails for $600 to $700, depending on which you choose. And he is expecting prices to go way up with the tariffs. It's all outlined on the website. The Moonlight is truly a tent that you buy once, you cry once, and then you have it for the rest of your life. Would I buy it again, and who it's for? If I had to do it all over again, I'd buy this tent in a heartbeat. It's perfect for families, full-time travelers, or anyone who wants a legitimately durable, weatherproof shelter that they can actually live in. If you're ultralight focused or backpacking focused, this may not be the tent for you. But if you're looking for real-world comfort and stability, I can't recommend it enough. Do you have any questions about camping with a baby or choosing the right tent for extended travel? Drop them in the comments. And if you've ever lived out of a tent, even for a handful of nights, I'd love to hear what made your experience work. Thanks for watching.